What if someone trapped you in a room with just one other person for 2 whole years? If someone asked me that, I'd have some very specific requirements on who that person should be. They should be funny, interesting, reasonably intelligent, patient enough to tolerate me. But what if I told you that at one point I didn't have a choice? Now, before you start thinking this is some weird psychological horror movie, let me explain. Hi, my name is Kanaka Sathe, and as a child, I was what my mother would call pochi, which means sensitive. Basically, a nice way of saying that this child might survive any physical injury, but the slightest disappointed look, and she's scarred for life. I really struggled with my self esteem and constantly compared myself to others friends, classmates, random people I barely knew. Whenever someone new showed up, more outgoing, more confident, more intelligent, I felt like I wasn't enough. And then I started editing myself, like an Instagram post. Let's see, delete this weird opinion, crop out this habit, add a filter, add a smile, and then maybe someone would like me. But the thing about trying to be everyone's favorite person is that you forget what to act like when you're alone. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic flipped the world upside down. The year that introduced us to online classes, panic buying hand sanitizer, and the line that united an entire generation. Ma'am, you're not audible. Schools closed down, social events were cancelled, and for the first time in my life, I was forced to confront the person I'd been avoiding for so long, myself. And see, it was difficult at first. When we are conditioned to view ourselves through other people's opinions, being alone and self-reflecting is difficult. It's very, very uncomfortable. But slowly, this discomfort disappeared. I threw myself into hobbies. Reading, watching movies, crafts, so engrossed in stories that I had no choice but to focus on what I was doing rather than comparing myself to others. And that's when I realized I was actually starting to enjoy my own company. I realized that I didn't need to fit in to be valued. The things that I thought were flaws were just parts of my personality that I didn't need to change. I didn't need external validation to be worthy. And that's where my confidence grew. Not because I suddenly became perfect, not because I never made any mistakes, but because I was finally starting to become comfortable with who I really was. The devil on my shoulder told me I was being self-centered, because constantly finding flaws to be upset about was sold to me as being humble. But why shouldn't I love myself when I have to spend 80-something years 24/7 in my own company? I plan to enjoy this time, and so should you. I was finally learning to like myself. I learned that confidence isn't about being the loudest person in the room, although I am pretty loud. It's not about never being insecure. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all, and moving forward, regardless of what anyone says about you. After all, once you try to become everyone's cup of tea, you just end up a cup of water. As the lockdown continued, I found myself more independent in my thinking. I was more comfortable expressing my opinions and standing up for the things I believed in. I was more willing to try new things without the paralyzing fear of judgment. Of course, I still have my moments of self-doubt. Everyone does. But the thing about confidence that it's not a medal that you just achieve and keep forever. It's a slow, agonizing process that tests your patience and your willpower. But trust me, it's worth it. So in the end, the lockdown ended up teaching me something no self-help book, motivational speaker, or inspirational Instagram quote did. It ended up trapping me in a room, alone with myself for so long that I had no choice but to get acquainted with who I really was. And surprisingly, I turned out to be pretty good company. It's funny now that I think about it. I spent so long, so much precious time wondering whether other people liked me or not, when the only person whose opinion truly mattered, was the one I looked at in the mirror every single day. Thank you.